Captain Elena Voss had seen 3 wars, 2 planetary evacuations, and 1 supernova up close. Nothing prepared her for a child's question. The refugee ship Meridian's Hope floated in Earth's orbital, docked like a broken promise. Inside, 847 survivors from the Kryn system huddled in cargo bays, converted to shelters. The Dominion had scorched their worlds, left them with nothing but the clothes on their backs and memories that would wake them screaming for years to come. Elena walked through the makeshift corridors, boots clicking against metal grating. She'd done this walk 50 times in the past month. Different ships, same haunted eyes staring back at her. The Galactic Council called it humanitarian work. Elena called it penance. Humanity had arrived late to galactic civilization, missed the First Dominion War by a decade. Now they were making up for lost time, opening their stations and colonies to anyone fleeing the machine. Empire's relentless advance. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and despair. Dr. Sarah Chun looked up from her tablet. Exhaustion carved into every line of her face. Captain, the Velthera family is in Bay 3. The daughter needs authorization for extended medical care. Elena nodded. Standard protocol. Resources were tight, even for Earth. Every extended treatment needed command approval. She pulled up the file on her wrist display as she walked. Velthera family. 4 members. Agricultural workers from Kryn Prime. Daughter, age 14 standard years. Sustained injuries during evacuation. Got the file, didn't mention the scars. Bay 3 was quieter than the others. A family sat together on bunks that had been welded to the wall in neat, efficient rows. The father stood when Elena entered, his crystalline skin catching the harsh overhead lights. Kryn natives had that quality, like living gemstones, beautiful and fragile, all at once. The mother kept her eyes down. The son, maybe 10 years old, clutched a toy that had seen better days. And then there was the girl. Her name was Lyra. The scars ran from her left, temple down across her cheek. Her neck, disappearing beneath the collar of her relief jumpsuit. Earned scars, Helena recognized them immediately. Not from fire, from energy weapons. Dominion scorchers left marks like that, patterns that medical nanites couldn't fully erase, even with months of treatment. The crystalline quality of Lyra's skin made the scarring worse somehow, where it should have been smooth and refractive, catching light like her father's face. Instead, it was rough, clouded, like glass that had been melted and reformed wrong. Captain Voss. The father's voice carried the musical quality common to his species. Thank you for seeing us. We understand resources are limited. We only ask that you consider. The medical report says your daughter needs reconstructive therapy. Elena interrupted gently. She'd learned early that letting refugee families build up to their requests only made it harder. 12 sessions over 6 months. Dr. Chun recommends approval. Relief flooded the father's face. Thank you. Thank you so much. The scars, they cause her pain. And the other children, they stare, Lyra said quietly. Her voice was different from her father's, rougher, like something had damaged her vocal cords too. Or they look away really fast. Like I'm something they're not supposed to see. Elena met the girl's eyes. They were violet, bright and clear, and holding far too much understanding for 14 standard years. The medical team will start treatments next week. You'll need to check in with, can I ask you something? Lyra interrupted. Her mother made a sharp sound, probably a reprimand in their language, but Lyra ignored it. She stood up from her bunk, moved closer to Elena, close enough that the captain could see the way the scars pulled at the corner of the girl's mouth. Made smiling probably painful. Sure, Elena said. Do humans love scars too? The question hit Elena like a physical blow. Around them, the medical bay continued its quiet hum. Somewhere down the corridor, a child laughed. The air recyclers kicked in with their regular wheeze. But in Bay 3, time seemed to stop. What do you mean? Elena asked carefully. Lyra touched her face, fingers tracing the damaged skin with practiced familiarity. The Kryn were supposed to be beautiful. That's what everyone says. Like living art, like crystals and light. But I'm not beautiful anymore. The scars made me ugly. My father says the treatments will help, but they won't make me like I was before. Nothing can do that. She dropped her hand, met Elena's eyes again. I heard humans are different. That humans came from a dangerous world. That you have scars too. So I wanted to know, do humans think scars are ugly? Or can something broken still be worth loving? Elena's breath caught. In her mind, unbidden, came the memory of another medical bay, another time. Her sister Maria's voice, weak from the explosion that had torn through her ship. Am I hideous now, Elena? Tell me the truth. The captain became aware that everyone in Bay 3 was watching her. The Velthera family, waiting for an answer that might determine how their daughter saw herself for the rest of her life. Dr. Chun in the doorway, tablet forgotten in her hands. Two nurses who had stopped their work to listen. Elena Voss, who had commanded warships and made split-second decisions that determined who lived and died, who had negotiated with alien diplomats and stared down pirate warlords, found herself struggling to find words for a 14-year-old girl's question. She looked at Lyra, at the scars that marked her face, at the hope and fear warring in those violet eyes. Elena Voss began to tell the truth. Asterisk Elena sat down on the bunk across from Lyra, close enough to talk without the whole medical bay hearing. The girl's parents exchanged glances, but didn't object. Something in the captain's manner, perhaps, told them this was important. You want to know if humans can love scars, Elena said slowly. That's a complicated question, but I'll try to answer it honestly. She rolled up her left sleeve, exposing her forearm. A jagged scar ran from wrist to elbow, pale against her brown skin. Shrapnel. Battle of Proxima Station, 8 years ago. A bulkhead exploded 15 feet from where I was standing. I was lucky, the medic told me. 3 centimeters to the right, and it would have severed the artery. Lyra leaned forward, studying the scar with intense focus. For a year after, I wore long sleeves everywhere, Elena continued. Even in summer, even when it was stupid hot. I told myself it was professional, that captains should maintain certain standards. But really, I was hiding. Every time I looked at this scar, I saw the moment I almost died. I saw the faces of the crew members who didn't make it off that station. But you're not hiding it now, Lyra observed. No, because about 6 months after Proxima, I met a man named David Chun, Sarah's brother. Actually, Elena nodded toward the doctor in the doorway. He was a civilian contractor, helped rebuild stations after battles. We were assigned to the same reconstruction project. One day, he saw my scar and asked about it. What did you tell him? I told him to mind his own business. Elena smiled at the memory. He laughed, said that was fair, but that he liked scars. Said they were proof that someone survived something that tried to kill them. That every scar was a story, and most stories were worth telling. She traced the line on her arm with one finger. David had scars too. Burns across his back from a plasma fire. He'd run into a collapsing building to pull out 3 workers. Saved their lives, nearly died doing it. When he showed me, I remember thinking how brave he must have been. How strong. Did you fall in love with him? Lyra asked, and despite everything, there was a hint of teenage curiosity in her voice, normal and achingly young. I did. Still am, actually. We got married 3 years ago. Elena's smile widened. And you know what changed my mind about my own scar? It was seeing his. seeing how I didn't think his scars made him ugly or broken. They made him real. They made him someone who had lived through things, someone who had fought and survived and kept going anyway. She met Lyra's eyes. So I started thinking, maybe if I could see his scars that way, as proof of strength instead of damage, maybe other people could see mine that way too. Maybe I could see them that way. But it's different, Lyra said, and her voice wavered. Your scar, it's small. Mine covers half my face. People can't not see it. Every time someone looks at me, that's the first thing they notice. Not me, just the scars. Elena nodded slowly. You're right. It is different. And I won't pretend to know exactly what that's like. But let me tell you about someone else. Someone whose scars were a lot more like yours. She pulled out her tablet, scrolled through her photo files. This is my sister Maria, younger than me by 4 years. Growing up, people always said she was the pretty one. I was the tough one. She was the beautiful one. She could have done anything, modeling, entertainment, but she wanted to fly. Became one of the best pilots in the fleet. Elena turned the tablet toward Lyra. The photo showed a woman in a pilot's uniform, smiling at the camera, confident and radiant. This was her 12 years ago. And this, Elena scrolled to the next image, is her 5 years ago. The change was stark. The same woman, but the left side of her face was a mass of scar tissue. An explosion had torn through her cockpit, the report had said. She'd managed to land the ship, save her crew, but the fire had marked her permanently. She looks like me, Lyra whispered. Yeah, Elena said gently. She does. And when she first saw herself after the surgeries, after months of skin grafts and reconstructive work, she cried for 3 days straight. Said her life was over. Said no one would ever look at her the same way again. Was she right? People did look at her differently, Elena admitted. Some of them looked away, uncomfortable. Some stared. Some treated her like she was fragile, like she might shatter if they said the wrong thing. It was hard. Really hard. So the answer is yes, Lyra said bitterly. Scars make you ugly. They make people not want to look at you. I'm not finished. Elena's voice was firm. Yes, some people reacted badly. But you know what else happened? The pilots in her squadron, they started calling her Ghost, because she'd walked through fire and come out the other side. Because nothing scared her anymore. Because she'd seen the worst and survived it. She scrolled to another photo. Maria in a flight suit, surrounded by her crew, all of them grinning at the camera. The scars were visible, undeniable, but so was the fierce pride in every face around her. 3 years after the accident, Maria was promoted to squadron leader. 2 years after that, she met her wife, a medical officer named Jamie, who thought Maria was the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen. Not despite the scars. Just beautiful, period. Elena leaned forward. Here's what I learned from watching my sister Lyra. Scars don't make you ugly. They're just marks. They're proof that something bad happened to you, yes. But they're also proof that you survived. And the people who matter, the people worth knowing, they'll understand that. How do you know which people are worth knowing? Lyra's voice was small. The ones who see you, not just your scars. The ones who ask about your interests, your dreams, who you want to become. The ones who might be curious about what happened to you, but who care more about who you are now. Elena set down the tablet. Those are your people. And trust me, they exist. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Her parents had moved closer, listening. Her mother had tears streaming down her crystalline face, silent and glittering. In Kryn culture, Lyra's father said quietly, physical perfection is highly valued. We are taught from childhood that beauty is harmony, that flaws disrupt the natural order. For Lyra to carry these marks in our society, it would have meant... He trailed off, unable to finish. Isolation, Lyra's mother completed. She would have been pitied, avoided, treated as damaged. But you're not in Kryn anymore, Elena said gently. You're here. And humanity, we've got a different story about scars. We've got warriors who wear them like medals. We've got survivors who turn their trauma into strength. We've got poets who write about broken things being more beautiful because they've been broken. She stood up, offered her hand to Lyra. The girl looked at it for a moment, then reached out. Her crystalline hand felt cool, smooth where it wasn't scarred. Can I tell you something? Elena said. The first thing I noticed about you wasn't your scars. It was your eyes. They're an incredible color, like violet sapphires. Lyra blinked, surprised. Really? Really. And the second thing I noticed was your voice. It's unique, strong. You speak like someone who's thought carefully about what words mean. Elena squeezed the girl's hand gently. The scars? Yeah, I saw them. But they weren't the first thing. And they're definitely not the most important thing. Do you mean that? Lyra asked. Or are you just saying it to make me feel better? Elena considered the question, gave it the respect it deserved. Both, maybe. I do mean it. But I'm also saying it because I think you need to hear it, and that's okay. Sometimes the truth and kindness are the same thing. She released Lyra's hand, stepped back. The treatments will help with the pain and mobility, but they won't erase what happened to you. Nothing can. And honestly, maybe that's not a bad thing. Those scars are part of your story now. A story about surviving something terrible. About being strong enough to live through it and ask questions about your future. That's not ugly, Lyra. That's incredible. Lyra touched her face again, but this time the gesture seemed different. Less like hiding, more like acknowledging. I want to believe you. Then start small. Believe me just for today. Tomorrow, we'll work on believing it again. And the day after that. Eventually, maybe you'll believe it because you see it's true, not just because I said it. Elena smiled. Deal? The girl thought about it, then nodded slowly. Deal. As Elena left Bay 3, Dr. Chun fell into step beside her. They walked in silence for a moment before the doctor spoke. That was good. What you did in there. I meant every word. I know. That's why it was good. Sarah glanced at her. You didn't mention the nightmares. What? Maria's nightmares. They lasted for 3 years. She nearly lost her commission twice because of fitness evaluations. Her first marriage fell apart because she couldn't sleep in the same room as someone without panicking. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. You gave that girl hope. That's beautiful. But you also simplified it. Made it sound easier than it is. Elena stopped walking. You think I should have told a 14-year-old refugee that her life is going to be hard? That some days she'll hate what she sees in the mirror? That people will judge her and some of them will never see past the surface? I think she already knows that, Sarah said quietly. She's lived through a war, Elena. She's not naive. And giving her false hope might hurt more in the long run than giving her honest expectations. They stood in the corridor while crew members passed around them. Finally, Elena sighed. You're right. But she needed to hear something positive today. Something to hold on to. The harsh truths can come later when she's stronger. Or, Sarah suggested, they can come gently, mixed with the hope. Both things can be true. Life can be hard and worth living. Scars can hurt and be nothing to be ashamed of. People can be cruel and kind, sometimes the same people on different days. Elena looked at her friend. When did you get so wise? I'm a doctor. We specialize in complicated truths. Sarah smiled. But for what it's worth, what you told her about David About how you saw his scars? That's going to stick with her. That's the kind of thing that changes how someone sees themselves. As they parted ways, Elena found herself thinking about all the scars she'd seen over the years. Physical ones like hers and Maria's and David's. Emotional ones that didn't show on the surface, but shaped people just as surely. The scars that every refugee on this station carried, invisible but heavy. Could humans love scars? It was still a complicated question. But as Elena headed back to the command deck, she thought maybe the answer was simpler than she'd first believed. Humans could love anything if they understood its story. And every scar had a story, if someone cared enough to listen. 3 weeks passed. Elena found herself checking in on Bay 3 more often than necessary. Protocol didn't require daily visits. Compassion, apparently, had different rules. Lyra's treatments had begun. The reconstructive therapy used advanced nanotechnology, slowly encouraging the damaged tissue to regenerate. It was painful work. Elena had seen the girl leaving med sessions with tears streaming down her crystalline face, her mother supporting her weight as they walked back to quarters. But something else was happening too. The refugee children had started gathering in the station's observation deck during recreation periods. At first, they'd stayed in their separate groups. Kryn children with Kryn, Thulians with Thulians, each species clinging to the familiar in a strange human station. Fear made people tribal. Lyra had started sitting alone, Elena noticed. Not with her family, not with other Kryn youth. Just alone by the massive viewport, watching Earth spin below them in brilliant blues and whites. She's isolating, Dr. Chun said during their weekly medical briefing. Classic trauma response. The other Kryn children have started avoiding her. Why? Elena asked, though she had her suspicions. Their parents. I've overheard conversations. They're worried their children will be marked by association. That being close to Lyra will somehow taint them, make them less desirable for future matches, less acceptable in Kryn social circles. Sarah's voice was tight with anger. They survived a genocide together, but God forbid their precious social status take a hit. Elena felt her jaw clench. That's human nature, or Kryn nature, or apparently just universal nature. Sarah rubbed her temples. The parents aren't cruel about it. They're polite. They just quietly steer their kids away. Make excuses. Lyra's smart enough to notice. How's she handling it? On the surface? Fine. She reads a lot, keeps to herself, doesn't complain. Underneath? Sarah met Elena's eyes. She's drowning. And I don't have a medication for loneliness. That evening, Elena found herself in the observation deck during recreation hours. She told herself she was there to review security protocols, to ensure the refugee children were safe and supervised. She told herself it was duty. She was a terrible liar, even to herself. Lyra sat in her usual spot, a datapad in her lap, showing what looked like Earth literature. The girl had thrown herself into learning human culture with an intensity that seemed equal parts curiosity and escape. Elena approached slowly, making sure her footsteps were audible. Lyra looked up, surprise flickering across her scarred features. Captain, is something wrong? No. Mind if I join you? Lyra gestured to the empty space beside her. Elena sat, gazing out at Earth below them. From orbit, it was achingly beautiful. White clouds swirled across blue oceans. Continents edged in green and brown. No borders visible from up here. No wars, no divisions. Just one fragile sphere of life in the darkness. What are you reading? Elena asked. Japanese poetry. Haiku. Lyra turned the datapad so Elena could see. Dr. Chun recommended it. She said sometimes the shortest words carry the biggest meanings. Find any you like? Lyra scrolled to a marked passage. This one by Matsuo Bashu. In the twilight rain, these brilliant-hued hibiscus, a lovely sunset. She paused. I think I understand what he meant. How something can be beautiful, even when it's ending. Even when it's touched by rain. The silence stretched between them, comfortable and sad all at once. The other kids don't talk to you much, Elena said finally. Not a question. No. Lyra's voice was matter-of-fact. Their parents don't approve. I'm bad luck, I think. Or maybe just a reminder of things they want to forget. How does that make you feel? Lyra shrugged, but the casualness was forced. Alone. But I was alone on Kryn Prime too, after the scars. So I guess I'm used to it. Being used to something doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. No, Lyra agreed softly. It doesn't. Elena watched a young Thulian boy chase his sister across the observation deck, their laughter echoing off the curved walls. Normal children doing normal things. Lyra watched them too, her expression carefully neutral. When I was 15, Elena said, my parents died in a transport accident. Mechanical failure, wrong place, wrong time. My sister Maria was 12. We had some extended family, but no one who could take in 2 grieving kids. So we went into the system, foster care. Lyra turned to look at her fully. Some of the homes were okay. Some weren't. But the worst part wasn't the bad placements or the indifferent social workers. It was the other kids at school. Once they found out we were foster kids, orphans, we became different. Damaged goods. Some were mean about it. Most were just uncomfortable. They didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. They smiled politely and found reasons to be somewhere else. What did you do? Lyra asked. I got angry first. Then I got sad. Then I got smart. Elena smiled, but it was edged with old pain. I realized I couldn't control how other people saw me. I could only control how I saw myself and who I chose to care about. So I stopped trying to make the uncomfortable kids like me. I found the other outsiders. The weird kids, the broken kids, the ones who didn't fit in the neat little boxes society wanted to put them in. She gestured toward the viewport. That's how I ended up here, actually. Joined the Space Corps at 18. The military takes all kinds. Doesn't care if you're an orphan or a prince, as long as you can do the job. Found my people. Found my purpose. But you had your sister, Lyra pointed out. You weren't alone. True. And you have your parents, your brother. That matters. But I know it's not the same as having friends your own age. People who choose to be around you because they like who you are, not because they're obligated by family. Lyra looked down at her datapad. I thought maybe here, on Earth, it would be different. That humans understood about scars. About surviving things. Some do. Some don't. Humans aren't magical, Lyra. We've got all the same prejudices and fears as everyone else. We're just usually too proud to admit it. So what's the difference? Why did you tell me humans could love scars if we're just as bad as everyone else? Elena considered the question carefully. Because humans have had to learn to love scars. Our planet tried to kill us for thousands of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, droughts. We're not the strongest species, or the fastest, or the most naturally gifted. We're just the ones who are too stubborn to die. She pointed at Earth below them. Every human alive is descended from someone who survived. Something terrible. Famine, war, plague, oppression. We carry those stories in our genes, in our culture. So when we see someone with scars, physical or otherwise, a lot of us recognize a fellow survivor. We know that scars mean you fought something and lived, but not everyone sees it that way. No, Elena admitted. Not everyone. Some people see scars and get scared because it reminds them that bad things happen. That safety is an illusion. that they could be next. Fear makes people cruel sometimes. Lyra absorbed this in silence. Then, how do you find the ones who understand? The ones who see survivors instead of damaged people? You test them. Not consciously, usually. You watch how they react to difficulty, to imperfection, to their own mistakes and other people's. The ones worth knowing? They stumble sometimes, but they try. They ask questions instead of making assumptions. They admit when they're wrong. They show up consistently, when it's easy and when it's hard, when you're fun to be around and when you're not. The people who show up for both are your people. As if summoned by the conversation, a figure approached from across the observation deck. A human girl, maybe 16, with dark skin and hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore the gray jumpsuit of station youth, kids of crew members who lived on the station full-time. Captain Boss? The girl's voice was respectful, but not intimidated. Sorry to interrupt. I'm Zara Patterson. My mom's chief engineer Patterson. Elena knew the name. Lieutenant Commander Patterson, one of the best engineers in the fleet. What can I do for you, Zara? Actually, I was hoping to talk to her. Zara gestured at Lyra. If that's okay. Lyra looked startled. Me? Yeah, I saw you reading earlier, and I think that was the Bashu collection. I love haiku. My grandmother was from Japan. She used to write them. Zara shifted, suddenly less confident. I know you're probably busy, but there's a literature group that meets on D-Deck twice a week. Earth poetry, alien poetry, all kinds. I thought maybe you'd want to come. No pressure or anything. Lyra stared at the human girl like she'd spoken an alien language. You want me to join your group? If you're interested, yeah. We're pretty casual. Just sit around, read poems, talk about what they mean to us. Sometimes we try writing our own, but they're usually terrible. Zara smiled. Fair warning. There's a Thulian guy who insists all poetry should rhyme, and we spend half our time arguing about free verse. Lyra touched her face unconsciously. The gesture Elena had seen 100 times. You know I'm scarred, right? I'm not like the other Kryn. Zara looked genuinely confused. Yeah, I can see that. So most people don't want to be around me. Are you mean? What? No. Do you smell bad? Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh. No? Then why wouldn't people want to be around you? Zara shrugged. Look, I don't know much about Kryn culture. Maybe it's different there. But here, on this station, we've got crew from 40 different planets. Half of us don't look human standard anyway. Chief Medical Officer has 4 arms. Navigation Officer has scales. My best friend breathes methane and has to wear an envirosuit everywhere. She gestured at Lyra's face. Scars? Honestly, not even in the top 10 weirdest things I've seen this month. And definitely not a reason to avoid someone who likes good poetry. The silence that followed felt immense. Elena watched emotions flicker across Lyra's scarred features. Disbelief, hope, fear, more hope. Okay, Lyra said finally, voice barely above a whisper. I'd like that. Great. We meet tomorrow at 1800 hours. D-Deck, Recreation Room 3. Bring whatever you're reading. Zara started to leave, then turned back. Oh, and fair warning number 2. Sometimes people bring snacks, and it gets weird, because we all have different biochemistry. Last week, someone brought Andromedan honey paste, and it made half of us super hyperactive. It was chaos. She walked away, leaving Lyra staring after her with an expression of wonder. That's what showing up looks like, Elena said quietly. Lyra turned to her, eyes wide. She didn't care. About my scars. She really didn't care. She saw them. She just decided they weren't the important part. Is everyone here like that? No. but enough are. And those are the ones you build your life around. Elena stood, preparing to leave. Go to that meeting tomorrow. Be nervous, be scared, but go anyway. That's how you find your people, Captain? Lyra's voice stopped her. Thank you for sitting with me. For all of it, Elena smiled. That's what showing up looks like, too. As she walked away, Elena felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. Maybe she hadn't given Lyra false hope after all. Maybe she'd just pointed the girl toward the truth that was harder to see from inside the pain. Humans weren't perfect. They weren't magical. But at their best, they were practical enough to understand that judging people by their scars was a waste of time, when there was poetry to discuss and honey paste to accidentally poison themselves with. And sometimes, practical was the kindest thing you could be. The literature group changed Lyra. Not overnight, not completely, but in small ways that accumulated like snow building into something substantial. Elena watched it happen from a distance, the way a ship captain watches stars to navigate. Constant awareness, careful not to interfere. The girl smiled more, started sitting with other young people in the cafeteria instead of alone. Her voice, when Elena passed her in corridors, had lost some of that careful flatness. She sounded like a teenager again. Dramatic opinions about poetry. Laughter that came easier. But something else was happening too. Elena noticed it during her rounds through the refugee sections. The isolation wasn't just Lyra's problem. It was everywhere. The station housed over 2,000 refugees now, 15 different species, dozens of cultural groups. They moved through the same corridors, breathed the same recycled air, but they lived in separate worlds. Fear and trauma built walls faster than any construction crew. It was a Veltheron mother who brought it to Elena's attention directly. She'd cornered the captain outside the medical bay, desperation overriding social boundaries. My son won't sleep. He screams every night, dreams about the attack. But when I try to get him help, the counselors have waiting lists months long. Everyone needs help. Everyone is drowning. Elena had added it to the growing list of problems that no amount of military efficiency could solve. Resources were finite. Trauma was not. Then Lyra asked for a meeting. I have an idea, the girl said, sitting across from Elena in her office. 4 weeks since their first conversation. The scars were still visible, still striking, but Elena found she barely noticed them now. Lyra's expressive eyes and animated gestures took up more space than the damage. I'm listening. The literature group, it's helped me a lot. Having people to talk to, share things with. But it's small, only 8 of us. There are hundreds of kids on this station dealing with the same stuff I am. Worse stuff, some of them. Lyra pulled out a datapad, notes obviously carefully prepared. I did research. Earth has something called peer support groups, where people who've been through similar experiences help each other. Not professional therapy, just people who understand, talking to other people who understand. Elena leaned forward, interested. You want to start a support group? Not just one. Multiple groups. By age, by interest, by need. A group for kids who lost parents. A group for people dealing with physical injuries. A group for artists, for musicians, for people who just want to talk about normal stuff and pretend the universe isn't falling apart for an hour. The girl's voice gained confidence as she spoke. I can't fix everyone's problems. I'm 14 and I can barely handle my own issues. But I can share what worked for me. I can tell them about the poetry group, about finding people who see past the surface. I can help them find each other. That's a big undertaking. You're already dealing with treatments, adjusting to life on the station. I know. But Captain, I need this. Lyra met Elena's eyes. When you're drowning, someone throws you a rope. Zara threw me a rope. Now I'm not drowning anymore, and there are all these other people in the water. I have to throw ropes too. That's how it works, right? Elena felt something catch in her throat. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. 2 weeks later, the first peer support session met in Recreation Room 5. Elena had pulled strings, gotten approval from Station Command, allocated space and resources. Dr. Chun had provided training materials, guidelines for peer counselors, crisis protocols. 12 young refugees showed up. By the end of the hour, 3 were crying. By the next week, 18 attended. By the month's end, they had to split into multiple groups. Lara had found her purpose. Elena watched from the observation window as the girl facilitated a discussion group. 8 refugees between the ages of 12 and 16, 4 different species, all of them marked by war in visible and invisible ways. Lara spoke, gestured, listened. When a Thulian boy broke down describing the night his village burned, Lara moved to sit beside him. Didn't touch him, just sat there, present. When a human girl said she felt guilty for surviving when her brother hadn't, Lyra nodded. I know that feeling. Want to talk about it? She's good at this, Dr. Chun said, appearing beside Elena. Natural leader, natural healer, asterisk in some ways. She's 14. So was Joan of Arc when she started having visions. So was Malala when she started speaking out. Sarah smiled. Age doesn't determine capacity for courage. Circumstances do. They watched in silence for a moment. Then Sarah spoke again, voice careful. You know this can't be her whole identity, right? Trauma survivor helping other trauma survivors. It's beautiful work, but it can also be a trap. She needs to be more than her scars. And what happened to her? I know. Do you? Because I've seen the way you look at her. Like she's Maria's redemption story. Like if this girl is okay, maybe your sister will be okay retroactively. Elena felt like she'd been struck. I'm not judging. I understand it. Sarah's voice was gentle. But Lyra needs space to figure out who she is beyond the survivor, beyond the helper. She needs permission to be a normal, messy teenager sometimes, to make mistakes and have stupid opinions and care about trivial things. She's helping people. How is that a trap? It's a trap when it becomes the only thing you're allowed to be. When people expect you to always be strong, always be wise, always be the one with answers. Sarah turned to face Elena directly. You gave her hope by telling her humans can love scars. Now you need to show her that humans can also love the person underneath the scars, the one who exists independent of trauma. The words sat heavy in Elena's chest as she returned to duty. A week later, Elena was reviewing supply requisitions when her communicator chimed. Dr. Chun marked urgent. Her heart sank. Urgent for medical usually meant casualties, accidents. Something bad. She reached the medical bay in under 3 minutes. Sarah met her at the entrance, face grim. What happened? Lyra. She had a breakdown during her support group session today. Complete dissociative episode. She couldn't remember where she was, couldn't recognize anyone. Took us 40 minutes to bring her back. Elena felt cold. What triggered it? Near as we can tell, she was helping another girl work through trauma memories. Got too deep, too close to her own triggers. She's in observation now, sedated. Sarah led Elena to a private room. Lyra lay on the medical bed, eyes closed, face peaceful in artificial sleep. Without the animation of personality, the scars seemed harsher, more pronounced. She's carrying too much, Sarah said quietly. She's trying to help everyone process their trauma while not processing her own. That's not sustainable. The support groups are good, are helping people, but they're also allowing Lyra to avoid dealing with her own pain by focusing on everyone else's. She needs real therapy, Elena, professional help. And she needs to be allowed to not be strong for a while. Elena sat down beside the bed, looked at the girl who'd asked if humans could love scars. She was doing so well. She was performing well. There's a difference. Sarah checked the monitors, adjusted in 4-drip. Trauma doesn't heal in a straight line. You have good days and setbacks. You make progress and fall apart. That's normal. But Lyra's been putting so much pressure on herself to be okay, to be helpful, that she hasn't given herself permission to still be hurt. What do I do? Let her be human. Or Kryn, I guess, but you know what I mean. Let her be a kid who's still figuring things out, who needs help sometimes instead of always giving it. Elena reached out, carefully took Lyra's cool crystalline hand. I told her humans could love scars. I meant it. I know you did. Now prove it by loving the person who carries them, scars and all. The strong parts and the broken parts. The helper and the one who needs help. Sarah moved toward the door, paused. She wakes up in about an hour. Be here, just be here. So Elena sat, held the hand of a child who'd asked a simple question and set off ripples Elena was still tracing. Outside the window, Earth continued its eternal spin. Beautiful and broken and home to 8 billion. People trying to figure out how to love each other's scars. When Lyra's eyes opened, unfocused and confused, Elena was there. Hey, the captain said softly. You're okay. You're safe. You're in medical. What happened? You had a rough day. That's okay. Everyone has rough days. Tears spilled from Lyra's violet eyes, tracking down her scarred cheeks. I'm supposed to be helping people. I'm supposed to be strong. Says who? Says, everyone needs help. I can't be weak too. Elena squeezed her hand gently. Lyra, listen to me. You helped a lot of people. You threw them ropes when they were drowning. That was brave and good. But you know what's also brave? Asking for a rope yourself when you need one. But, no buts. You're 14. You survived a genocide. You watched your world burn. You carry scars that hurt every day. You are allowed to not be okay sometimes. You are allowed to need help. Lyra cried harder. I don't want to be broken anymore. You're not broken. You're healing. And healing isn't pretty or linear. It's messy, and it hurts, and sometimes you backslide. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. Or Kryn, but you know what I mean. Despite the tears, Lyra almost smiled. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. Elena reached for a tissue, handed it over. I told you humans could love scars, but I didn't tell you the whole truth. The truth is, we don't just love the scars. We love the person carrying them. The strong moments and the struggling moments. The days you save everyone, and the days you can barely save yourself. All of it? That's what love means. How do you know? Elena thought of Maria, of David, of every person she'd served with who carried visible and invisible wounds. Because I've been loved that way. And I've learned to love that way. It's harder than loving people when they're perfect and put together. But it's also more real. Lyra wiped her eyes, crystalline fingers clumsy with exhaustion. I'm sorry I broke down. Don't be. You're going to break down again, probably. That's okay. What's not okay is thinking you have to carry everything alone. Elena stood up, but didn't let go of Lyra's hand. We're going to get you a real therapist. And you're going to take a break from the support groups for a while. Focus on your own healing. But the groups will be fine. We'll find other facilitators. Other survivors who want to help. You started something beautiful, Lyra. Now let other people carry it forward while you rest." The girl looked like she wanted to argue. Then something in her face crumbled, the mask of strength falling away to reveal the frightened child underneath. "I'm so tired." "I know, sweetheart. I know." As Dr. Chun came in to check vitals, Kalena stepped into the corridor. She pulled out her communicator, sent a message to 3 different crew members. By tomorrow, they'd have volunteer facilitators for the support groups. By next week, Lyra would have her first appointment with the station's best trauma counselor, Dot, and in 6 months, when Lyra was stronger, healed enough to hold both her pain and her purpose, she could return to helping others if she wanted. But only if she wanted. Only when she was ready. Elena looked out the window at Earth below. She thought about scars, about survival, about the difference between being strong and being allowed to be weak. Humans could love scars. But first, they had to love the wounded. All the way, broken parts included. That was the harder lesson. The one Lyra was just beginning to learn. *6. Months changed everything and nothing. Earth. Station Alpha had processed over 4,000 refugees. The temporary camps had become semi-permanent communities. Children attended schools. Adults found work. Life continued in the strange way it does, even after world's end. Lyra had her own quarters now, shared with 2 other Kryn girls near her age. The support groups had expanded, now run by a rotation of trained peer counselors with professional oversight. The literature group had spawned a dozen other interest clubs. Art therapy, music sessions, even a mixed-species cooking disaster that required evacuation and made station legend the girl herself look different. Taller, filling out in the way teenagers do when they're finally getting enough food and sleep. The scars remained, would always remain, but the pain lines around them had softened. The reconstructive therapy had helped with mobility, reduced the tension that had pulled at her features. She smiled more, laughed more, got in trouble for staying up too late reading in the common areas, for forgetting her duty rotations, for being a normal, occasionally irresponsible teenager. Elena couldn't have been prouder. "Captain, you have a visitor." The ensign at her office door looked amused. "It's personal." Lyra entered, datapad in hand, purpose in her step. She'd inherited that from someone, Elena thought. That directness, that refusal to waste time on uncertainty. "I need advice," Lyra said, sitting down without preamble. "Adult advice. Okay, what about?" "I've been accepted into 2 programs. Early admission." She pulled up files on her datapad. One is the Interstellar Medical Academy on Mars. Full scholarship. They want me for their trauma psychology program. They think my personal experience combined with the work I did here makes me a strong candidate. Elena felt a swell of pride. "That's incredible, Lyra. Congratulations." "Wait, there's more." She switched files. The other is the Cultural Integration Institute on Europa. They want me for their refugee services program. Apparently, my file got flagged by the recruitment algorithms. They think I could help develop better systems for helping displaced populations. Both are excellent opportunities. I know. That's the problem. Lyra set down the datapad, frustration clear on her face. I don't know which to choose. If I go medical, I can help people directly, one-on-one therapy, real healing work. But if I go integration, I can help change policies, help thousands of refugees instead of dozens. They're both about helping, but in completely different ways. Elena studied the girl who'd once asked if humans could love scars. What do you want to do? Not what you think you should do. What excites you? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. That's the thing. Neither of them is what I actually want. Explain. I want to write. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them in. I want to study literature, creative writing, poetry. I want to tell stories. Not other people's trauma stories. Not educational material about refugee experiences. Just stories. Fiction. Beautiful things that have nothing to do with war or scars or survival. She met Elena's eyes, defiant and vulnerable all at once. But that's selfish, right? I have all this experience, all this knowledge about trauma and survival. I should use it to help people. I should be practical. Elena leaned back in her chair, remembering a conversation 6 months ago about showing up, about finding your people, about being more than your scars. Can I tell you something? She said, I went to the academy to become an engineer. I was good at it too. Top of my class in propulsion systems. Everyone said I'd be brilliant in engine design, that I could revolutionize deep space travel. But you became a captain. But I became a captain because what I loved wasn't engineering. I loved leading people, organizing chaos, making impossible decisions. So I switched tracks, disappointed a lot of professors who had plans for my life. Elena smiled. Best decision I ever made. That's different. You were still helping people, just in a different way. And you wouldn't be helping people by writing stories? Lyra frowned. It's not the same as therapy or policy work, isn't it? Elena stood up, walked to her bookshelf, pulled down a worn volume. This is poetry by Shire. Human poet, wrote about the refugee experience. My sister gave it to me years ago when I was struggling with some difficult decisions. She handed it to Lyra. I've never met Shire. She never treated me for trauma or changed immigration policy on my behalf. But her words helped me understand myself better, helped me feel less alone, helped me believe I could survive what I was going through. Lyra opened the book, fingers tracing the pages with reverence. Stories matter. Lyra, they don't feed people or provide shelter, but they feed something else. They provide shelter for the parts of us that can't be protected by walls and policies. Elena sat back down. You've spent 6 months learning that you're more than your trauma. Now you have to believe it. You're allowed to want something that has nothing to do with what happened to you. But people need help. There's so much suffering. There will always be suffering. And there will always be people to help address it. But there's only one you, with your specific voice, your specific perspective, your specific gifts. If you want to write, write. If you become a great writer, you'll help more people than you could ever reach in a therapist's office or a policy committee. Lyra stared at the book in her hands. What if I'm not good enough? Then you'll get better. That's what education is for. Elena smiled. What if you are good enough, and you never tried because you thought you owed the universe something else? The silence stretched between them, comfortable and weighted with possibility. There's a writing program, Lyra said finally, voice small, at the University of New Geneva. They have a concentration in cross-cultural literature, studying how different species tell stories, finding universal themes. It's supposed to be one of the best programs in the system. Did you apply? No. I thought it was a pipe dream. Something to think about after I'd done my duty, after I'd paid back the universe for letting me survive. Elena leaned forward. Lyra, listen to me carefully. You don't owe the universe anything. You survived something terrible. It doesn't create a debt. You're not required to spend the rest of your life defined by the worst thing that happened to you. But what about the support groups? What about the people I could help? The support groups are thriving without you. Other survivors have stepped up, found their calling in that work. Your purpose doesn't have to be their purpose. Elena softened her voice. The best way to honor what you survived is to build a life you actually want. To become someone more than just a survivor. To choose something for yourself. Lyra was crying now, quiet tears that tracked down her scarred face. What if I choose wrong? Then you'll choose again. Life isn't one decision. It's 1,000 decisions, building on each other, correcting course as you learn who you are. Elena pulled out a tissue, handed it over. You asked me once if humans could love scars. You were really asking if you were still worth loving despite being damaged. Remember what I told you? That scars are proof of survival. That the right people would see past them. Not quite. I said the right people would see you, not just the scars. The whole you. The survivor and the poet. The helper and the artist. The girl who's been through hell and the girl who loves haiku. Elena smiled. So here's my question. Can you love yourself enough to choose what you want instead of what you think you should want? Lyra wiped her eyes, crystalline fingers gentle on scarred skin. I'm scared. Good. That means it matters. Only things that matter are scary. The girl laughed, watery but genuine. When did you get so wise? I've been faking it for years. You're just now noticing. Lyra stood up, tucked the poetry book under her arm. Can I borrow this? Keep it. I've got 3 more copies. My sister keeps sending them for birthdays. At the door, Lyra paused. Captain, thank you. For everything. For answering my question that first day. For showing up. For letting me be more than my scars. Lyra? Elena waited until the girl turned back. When you write your first book, I want a signed copy. The smile that broke across Lyra's face was radiant, scars and all. It's a deal. 3 years later, Elena received a package. Inside, a bound manuscript with a handwritten note. Captain Voss, here's the signed copy you requested. It's not published yet, still just a manuscript, but I wanted you to have the first one. The title is Stories Written in Starlight. It's about refugees who find home not in places, but in the words they share with each other. About survival and beauty and the complicated work of healing. Thank you for teaching me that I could be both the survivor and the poet. That I could honor what I lived through by building something beautiful from it. With gratitude and love, Lyra. Elena read the manuscript in one sitting. Then she read it again. By the 3rd reading, she understood what Lyra had done. She'd taken the question, can humans love scars? And answered it in 300 pages of heartbreaking, beautiful prose. The answer was yes, but not in the way the question assumed. The answer was that scars were part of the story, not the whole story. That being loved meant being seen completely. The wounds and the wonder, the pain and the possibility. That humans didn't love scars, despite them being scars. They loved people who happened to carry scars, and that was entirely different. Elena pulled out her communicator, sent a message. Lyra, your manuscript is extraordinary. I laughed, I cried. I stayed up all night reading. You were right to choose writing. The universe is better for it. Also, you need a better title. Stories Written in Starlight is pretty but forgettable. Try, Can Broken Things Still Shine? Much more compelling. Just a suggestion from someone who loves you, scars and all. Elena. The response came quickly. Captain, you're right about the title. Changed it. Also, dedication page for Elena Voss, who answered a question and changed a life. And for everyone carrying scars they didn't ask for, may you find the words to tell your own story. P.S. The book got picked up by a publisher. Release date next spring. Start saving for all the copies you're going to buy for everyone you know. Elena smiled, looking out her office window at Earth below. Somewhere down there, Lyra was building a life. Writing stories. Loving and being loved. Carrying scars that had stopped defining her and started just being part of her landscape. The question had been answered. Not in speeches or grand gestures, but in the quiet work of showing up. of seeing people completely, of letting them be more than their worst moments. Could humans love scars? Yes, because humans understood something fundamental about being alive. Everyone was scarred. Everyone was broken in some way. Everyone was surviving something. The only question that mattered was whether you could love people through their healing. Messy and non-linear and beautiful as it was. Thought the answer was yes. She'd spent 3 years proving it. And somewhere on Earth, a young writer was proving it too, one story at a time. The end asterisk.